Hello all, my name is Jadyn Green. Welcome to my presentation. The topic that I will be discussing is women in design. There are stories and successes throughout the decades that I will be showcasing, and there's so many to tell that I will only be highlighting a few, highlighting how women from the past become bosses and how now in 2020 we can see the expansive opportunities that women have. That brings us into our first topic, and we will be talking about gender disparity. What is gender disparity? What is it? Where does it come from? Where is it put into place? All those types of questions. And the simple answer to that is the definition of gender disparity. Gender disparity is the social process by which men and women are not treated equally. So usually this is seen in the workplace. All things design, video games, web design, and graphic arts can bring two genders together and create acceptance and encouragement, which fosters the potential to level the creative employment playing field. You must ask yourself, is this a good thing? There are numerous reasons why more women are needed and need representation, but is the female designer dilemma really all that bad? If a city of people stormed the doors of their school district demanding more male kindergarten teachers, they might be miraculously scoffed at. So basically this is saying, what I'm trying to say here is just the demand to see more women represented in the workplace. Jumping into our first designer is from the 40s, and that is Sipe Pinellas, the story of the great mid-century art director who broke barriers for women and who belongs in the design pantheon. If you notice, she was an art director, which is amazing to see in the 40s. Over to some snippets of her story. She was working at 17 from 1947 to 1950, the first woman to be inducted into the Art Directors Club in 1948, and art directorship at Charm and Mademoiselle from 1950 to 1961. Sipe was a leading woman in design when almost all her counterparts were men, which is something to highlight during the 40s and the early 50s as she's making her way into the 60s, noticing how she gradually starts working her way up the ladder. And below is just a comp layout from the cover of Vogue in 1939. Next is from the 50s, and that is Laura Lamb. Laura Lamb's story is one that catches my attention because of how she was introduced to La Renaissance by Max Huber. Then not too long after that, she would become the head of the creative department. She was a driven designer. Researching her is important to me because yes, she is pretty well known, but also telling her story is what I want to focus on. So her story. On to her story. From 1958 to 1962, Lamb headed up the creative department at La Renaissance, while also creating work for the other clients on the side, including Pirelli, Elizabeth Arden, and the Olivetti. In 1963, she returned to Zurich, hopeful to eventually make her way to America. However, the plan did not come to fruition. So she joined the advertising office of Frank Thiessen in Europe. She diverged from her well-known style of design, not wanting to work to become expected. Lamb's work from this time period on was not as well known or documented as her designs from 1950s and early 60s. So this layout, this design at the bottom is a La Renaissance ad or marketing poster from 1957. And this is just one of the many amazing works that she did while at La Renaissance. Onward to the 70s, we have Margaret Calvert, and her story begins. Margaret Calvert is a Southern African-born British designer famous for transforming signage and typography throughout Britain's roads, railways, and airports. She has a massive fan club of creatives from all around the world. The picture to the right is Margaret receiving the D&AD President's Award in 2014, which, if you did not know, is an award granted to a creative industry hero. Below is one of her many works from that signage and roadways project that she was doing. Kinner and Calvert worked together on this project. They built signage for all the new motorways in the UK. It was a project they had to start from scratch. The brief was to design signage that could be read and understood by the general public. And I added the picture of her receiving that D&AD award from 2014. I just thought it would be a fun little picture of her. So now we have arrived in the 2000s, and the first woman I will be talking about from the 2000s is Rikako Nakashima. Rikako Nakashima is described as an artist, photographer, and designer. She blurs the lines between design, contemporary art, and fashion design. She is the founder and principal of the design studio Village. Her main focus is to question existing viewpoints by collaborating with clients and organizations. Also, she runs her personal art practice called Human Nature, which questions the relationship between humankind and nature. Below is a work that combines lots of different elements and also different types of art. So on the first layer of this art piece, called Black and White Diamond, is typography and usage of line and linear perspective and creative flow, I guess. And then creative flow and expression. And then on the second layer is photography, and then we see more in depth inside that photography is her usage of fashion design and her love of using models in that fashion design. And I think that's really amazing and fascinating that she's starting to blur these lines for artists to notice that you don't have to just stick with one type of art and you can combine them in all sorts of different ways. So last but not least, we have Shaz Madani, and mainly her work is more recent from the 2016 on, but both of these artists from the 2000s, of course, are still working and still creating art and doing things that they love. So Shaz's background, she has worked for many leading design agencies as a freelance and permanent designer. She now runs her own independent practice under Shaz Madani Studio, where she has worked with editorial, book design, branding, and art direction for the cultural and commercial sector. Also, she is the creative director of Riposte, a magazine which profiles and celebrates women in design, art, politics, science, and music, which is amazing, and all those are great things. And below is just one example of many things she has collaborated on. This was a group project, a group effort put into this activities for creative kids. So these are just pages upon pages of art activities for creative kids, of course. This is called Think and Make Like an Artist, made in 2017. So yeah, I would like to just end this by saying that it's been interesting to see through the decades how women are being represented more and more, how they're coming into the light more and more, and it's not that they're completely forgotten about even in the 40s. And I think that's something that is highly encouraging and highly honorable, knowing that we went from seeing not very many women in design in the 40s, and of course there's still gender disparity problems and gender inequality in the workplace and in school. But with all that said, there are so many opportunities now for women, and For that, I am forever grateful, and that is what I have learned over this project. Thank you for listening, and thank you for viewing my spreads. I enjoyed making them, and I enjoyed making this presentation. Thank you.